What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I appreciate you joining me once again. So first things first, you would hit that subscribe button. That really helps the algorithm to push my content. That is really what I need for growth. So that would be a wonderful Merry Christmas from you to me. What's my Merry Christmas to you? You get all of this wonderful content for free just by hitting the subscribe button. It's really simple. So look, today we're going to talk about Conor McGregor. Everything is getting really convoluted at this point with Conor McGregor, where he is, what may be next for him. A lot of people think he'll never fight again. I tend to think that, he'll fight. He just may not fight in the UFC as we've traditionally seen him do. Okay. And we're going to kind of break that down throughout this process. First off, as we know, he has 2 fights left on his UFC contract. Those UFC contracts are based in exclusivity, which means that the fighter cannot go to any other promotion, do any sort of other MMA fight or boxing match, even an exhibition or anything like that, without the specific consent of the UFC and or Dana White. But the first thing we're going to do is look at a quick article by Eddie Alvarez, which is a former champion, lost his lightweight title to Conor McGregor. And he talks about how difficult it is to get out of these MMA contracts. So, but without stepping all over the article, we're going to start like this. Former UFC champion Eddie Alvarez has revealed why Conor McGregor will struggle to escape his UFC contract. McGregor hasn't fought in the UFC since 2021 when he broke his leg against Dustin Poirier in a trilogy bout. He became the first fighter in Dana White's promotion to hold 2 belts simultaneously after knocking out Alvarez 8 years ago at UFC 205. Since dropping his lightweight title to McGregor, Alvarez has left the UFC and debuted for 1 championship. Now, he's working with the Irishman once again as a star for the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, also known as BKFC. Realistically, I think he still has 2 fights left on his contract, Alvarez told MMA Fighting on Wednesday. I just know how difficult it is, especially when you're that valuable to a company. I haven't been as valuable as Conor, but back when I was basically Bellator's main guy, I know how difficult it is to get out of those contracts. They do not make it easy. McGregor has also reportedly been exploring a move into the bare knuckle promotion that he became a part owner of in April. However, the former 2-division UFC champion announced this month on social media that he's in talks with YouTuber turned WWE star Logan Paul for an exhibition boxing contest. He posted on X, "I'm in preliminary agreements with the," it says here Ambrani family, but I've seen it as Ambani. So I'm just going to go with what it says here in the article. The Ambrani family to face Logan Paul in a boxing exhibition in India. I have agreed. I will then seek my return to the octagon. Just 2 hours after his claim, Jake Paul, Logan's youngest brother, who fought Mike Tyson in November, responded by stating McGregor had initially contacted him over a possible meeting. He said, "Now it all makes sense why Conor McGregor and his management team have been desperately trying to get MVP to negotiate for a fight between us. As we told them privately, and I'm now saying publicly, the only way we are willing to explore me versus Conor in a pro boxing MMA fight is if Dana White and the UFC are at the table directly or make it clear they are okay with the discussions." Conor is washed. Needs the pause. Logan needs. That's weird. Conor is washed. Logan to win by however he wants, according to Jake. Jake and White have gone back and forth in a bitter feud now for years, and the UFC president has previously declared he would never work with him or his brother. This leaves McGregor in a sticky situation, as he would have to get permission from his boss, Dana White, to compete against either Logan or Jake Paul, just like when he fought Floyd Mayweather. Speaking on McGregor's potential endeavors into BKFC, Alvarez admitting that a move is unlikely to take place. For him, making the company hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't think it's going to be an easy exit, he said. I think he still has 2 more fights with the UFC, and I'm not sure how old Conor is, but he's not getting younger. It's going to be tough for him to fight those fights out and move onto another contract. So realistically, I don't know if he could fight BKFC, and if he does, it'll be when he's older. All right. So the first thing I would like to point out is Conor is absolutely the promised land for Conor is free agency. Okay. Because Conor outgrew the UFC years ago. And what I mean by that is his name itself has become a household name. His name itself is bigger, maybe not bigger, but as big, if not bigger, than the UFC's brand name. Okay. So he has literally, in name value, taken over and become bigger than the promotion that created him. You understand? So Conor, in that sense, is in a very unique situation with the UFC. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is Dana and company are great businessmen, obviously. Okay. And they do not want to burn bridges. And it is smart for him to not burn bridges with Conor McGregor, who is the biggest fight sports star on the planet, bar none, which is crazy to say since he hasn't been in a fight since 2021, but it's absolutely the truth. He finds a way. He made such an impact on the fight sports world. He can go 3 years, not even step into a ring or an octagon, and he's still somehow the biggest name in fight sports. He is. All right. With that said, this makes his contract a little different than any others. All you have to do is point back to the Floyd Mayweather fight back in the day. Dana has repeatedly said over and over, Francis tried to do it. There's been other guys talk about doing it. Dana has said over and over, oh, we don't do these circus sideshow boxing matches. That's not what we do here. We do real fights. Let me paraphrase that. We don't do sideshow circus fights unless it's the biggest name in combat sports and it stands to make us upon millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. That's what he really meant to say there, okay? Because absolutely they do it. They did it with Floyd Mayweather, right? The numbers, the analytics have to be just right for Dana to be able to switch over into co-promoting or cross-promoting some sort of event with a fighter who is currently under a UFC contract. Now, with that said, the question is, has Conor behind the scenes come and spoken with Dana and expressed to Dana that he may not want to come back to the UFC or MMA in general? Okay. Now, let me ask you something. Why would you go and fight in MMA when you had a catastrophic injury to your leg 3 years ago? Why would you step back into an octagon where people are able to throw full steam kicks at you and you throw full steam kicks back at them when you could go and fight somebody like Jake Paul in an exhibition boxing match and make 3 times the amount of money that you would make in the UFC? Somebody explain that to me. All right. Now, I know Conor is the highest paid fighter in the UFC still. I mean, John Jones is up there close, but Conor is still the highest paid. Okay. Now, I know that's crazy. He hasn't been in the octagon in 3 years, but if you look at that, you can only assume that even if he's making 10 million, even if the UFC comes out of the pocket with 12 million for Conor, 15 million, he's still not going to make as much as he would make boxing Jake Paul for 8 rounds. It's just true. Jake Paul made $40 million in his last exhibition boxing match against Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson made half that at 20 mil. Conor McGregor's current relative status and current relativity is bigger than even Mike Tyson. I mean, Mike Tyson's one of the best ever. No disrespect against him, but Mike Tyson's a has-been who's almost 60 years old. You know, Conor is technically still in his athletic prime. Okay, so you have to assume that Conor could make at least as much, probably by twice as much, to fight Jake Paul as Mike Tyson did fighting Jake Paul. So you're looking at Conor McGregor, $30-40 million probably to box Jake Paul. Okay, and 8 rounds of an exhibition versus 1/3 that amount to go into the UFC where all these killers are, where they can kick you in your leg. I don't care what he says about titanium shin bone. I don't care what he says. He does not want to enter into that sort of danger zone anymore. I think at 36 years old, I think he looks at it as, I've done everything there is to do in the sport. I have nothing else to prove in the UFC, which is true. Very first 2 weight division champion. Both times that he's been in there, or 3 out of the last 4 times that he's been in the UFC, he's gotten his ass kicked, except for against Cowboy Cerrone, who was washed up at the time, right? Why would Conor McGregor want to go back into the UFC for this to happen to him, possibly a fight-ending sequence and a career-ending sequence to happen to him for 1/3 the money that he can make boxing Jake Paul, okay? So free agency is where it's at for Conor McGregor. Not to mention, he could make more fighting in the BKFC as well, where he is part owner, and then would also get some points and money on the back end because he's owner of that, okay? But listen, point being, none of this can happen without the consent of Dana White. Conor McGregor is under exclusive contract with the UFC, which means he can't go and do any of these other things without the expressed permission of Dana White. I think that could be coming. I think that could be doing that. And people say, no, you know, Dana White's got them on contract. He doesn't like the sideshows, the circus show. Do I need to repeat what he really meant by that? He doesn't do it for most people, okay? He doesn't do it for most people. Conor is different. Conor is the biggest name in combat sports. Conor also is coming off of a catastrophic injury that could potentially end someone's career. It could have ended his career. We don't know. We haven't seen him back in the octagon. He could have came and sat down with Dana White, he and his team, and been like, look, you know, I haven't been able to kick the same since. I get pain. I start getting, you know, my leg starts to deaden. There's some things not right with the nerve in there. I just can't do MMA anymore. What do you think they're going to do if Conor McGregor, the biggest name in MMA and the biggest name ever in the UFC and in fight sports in general, comes to them and says that? I mean, they can't make him fight. Even a regular guy that is under UFC contract, they can't make them fight. And then you also have what's probably included in his contract, a sunset clause that's approaching, to where if he gets to a point where this sunset clause comes before he gets these last 2 fights, he's a free agent anyway. And then at that point, he's able to go out on his own and make more money than he would make with that UFC huge, massive promotional machine taking a lot of his money from him, right? So here's the situation that I think is going on. I think that Conor in the background has been having some of these conversations with Dana White and the UFC, okay? And I think that Dana White is getting to a point where he is starting to make some concessions. And also, too, you have to consider, you know, back in the day when the thing happened with Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor, you know, obviously that was a huge, huge selling event. Well, now we're getting to the point where this influencer boxing thing and Jake Paul has completely twisted this game, has completely twisted this sport, turned it upside on his head, and now he's got people who are bona fide heavyweight boxing champions calling him out because they want that payday. Because this guy who is 11-1 and came from an influencer boxing background is making more money in his fights than these bona fide WBA boxing champions are making. Okay, so he's shown that if you get the name value first and you create the storyline and you get people interested and invested in you as a person and your career and what you are trying to do, that's where the money comes from. All right. And people want to say, oh, skills pay the bills. Not really. Not really. Now, there's a reality. Jake Paul, there's certain people that he's not going to beat in boxing, but he doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about that. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have a certain amount of competitive pride where he thinks he's this or he thinks he's that or doesn't want to become great in boxing. I have no doubt that he's striving for that or looking to achieve that. But his number one priority is breaking ground and breaking barriers as far as money. He's trying to make as much money as possible. He made $40 million against Mike Tyson. Okay, guys? Dana White and them are starting to make some concessions, and I think that there could be a cross promotion or a co-promotion coming up soon. They can't make Conor fight, especially considering the extenuating circumstances, how his last fight in the UFC ended. You know, they can't, if a guy comes to them, hey, you know, I literally broke my leg in half the last time I was in the UFC, okay? And I have a family to worry about. I'm still only 36 years old. I still have a few years left to monetize my name and my brand. I don't really want to step in the octagon and get kicked in my leg that actually has metal in it right now, okay? And again, they could have sat down and told him he's having some trouble with his legs. BKFC, there's no kicking. BKFC, there's no grappling. Jake Paul exhibition match, there's no kicking. There's no grappling, okay? So Dana, I think, is at a point where he doesn't necessarily like to be, but he's at a point that he's kind of okay with it because he knows he's still going to make a shit ton of money, and he knows that he has Conor locked into that contract, which means if Conor goes and does anything else, Dana's going to get cut in on that. Okay. And Jake Paul, you heard him there. He said it himself. You know, we're not going to do this unless Dana is at the table. Well, they have to. You know, he has Conor under contract. He basically owns Conor's name right now. Okay. But this is a situation where I think Dana is okay with it. You know, it's not a bad place to be backed into a corner where, okay, well, we're going to do this boxing match is what we want to do. But guess what, Dana? You know, since you still have me under contract, if I were still in the UFC, you would stand to probably make about this much off of me. So guess what? I can still give you that. I can still give you that. It just won't be in the UFC. So you can anticipate that there is something about to happen, some sort of co-promotion or cross-promotion about to happen with Dana White, the UFC, and Conor McGregor. It's coming, okay? This stuff that you're hearing in the background, and a lot of people are wondering, like, what's Conor doing? Why is it, you know he's under contract. I mean, he knows he can't go and fight Jake Paul or Logan Paul or yada, yada, yada. He knows he can't do it. What's he doing? Don't be so sure that he doesn't know, or don't be so sure that he has not been told that he can. Okay? He and Dana are good friends. And when you are the biggest name in sports, in combat sports, you get to do things that the other guy can't do. Okay? And again, there are extenuating circumstances, not only how big of a name Conor has, but how his last fight ended. He's got 2 more fights left. Listen, the UFC is looking at this now like if you can't beat him, join him, right? And if they can't get Conor back into the UFC, and they can't force him, How are you going to force a guy that's got all the money in the world? You know, and I know people are looking, well, he's been losing all the sponsors and he had to pay for this, chicks, legal fees. And when you have as much money as Conor McGregor has, nobody can force you to do anything, right? And that's why they are in this specific predicament with him. And you've heard you've heard Dana say it at press conferences numerous times. You can't make the guy, he's got so much money. That's the problem with Conor. He doesn't have to fight. It's true. He doesn't have to fight. So he can just keep saying no, 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 no. And there's probably some sort of sunset clause that's written in his contract, right? And if it's already in there, Dana White and the UFC aren't going to try to do bad business by, we're going to change it. No, that's his contract. That's what it is. And they're not going to do that to Conor McGregor anyway, because they don't want to burn bridges with a guy who has not only already made them hundreds of millions of dollars, but can still make them more money. Okay? The cross promotion is coming. The co-promotion is coming. I can feel it. There's a reason you're hearing all this other chatter going on about it fighting Logan Paul, and then he's fighting Jake Paul, and this is. They're putting the feelers out, okay? They're putting the feelers out so that their research teams can then go back and look at all the analytics and look at how many people are Googling it and look at how many people like me are doing videos about Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor and this and that. And they're going to get their numbers and they're going to get their data sets together and they're going to come to all the different promoters and they're going to be like, this is about how much this could make, and this is about how much this could make, and then we're looking to break these kind of records with this, and I break these kind of records with that. I saw Dana White's this close to signing a deal with Netflix. I mean, Jake Paul, Mike Tyson just finished on Netflix. You can't see Dana White co-promoting Jake Paul versus Conor McGregor streaming on Netflix. Do you know how much money Netflix would pay Dana White, Conor McGregor, and Jake Paul and everyone else involved for getting that fight? It's unimaginable, the kind of money we're talking about here. So Eddie Alvarez was right, but he's also wrong. Because Conor is an extenuating circumstance. He's worth so much, and his name is worth so much that Dana White and the UFC are willing to make some concessions on his behalf for these last 2 fights. So that's why I think they're probably not going to happen in the UFC. It's probably going to be a cross promotion, a co-promotion with something else. I don't see it being BKFC just because, get in there and get all cut up and stuff. I mean, obviously the path of least resistance and the most money is a boxing match with Jake Paul. He'd make 3 times the amount of money as he would fight in the UFC or the BKFC. He'd make a decent amount in the BKFC, but probably, and because he's part owner too, he'd make a decent amount. But Jake Paul is the money fight right now, okay? And Conor can say whatever he wants to online. In the very beginning, he's calling him a weasel, and Jake Paul's not worth even uttering Conor's name because he's achieved such greatness and blah, 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 blah. Nah. Conor's rethought that thing in a big way, and things have changed. Look what Jake Paul's done since then. I mean, it's still to the moon with him, bro. He hasn't slowed down a bit. Jake Paul, that is. So his name, it's getting there. I mean, it's to a point now where you heard what Jake Paul's team said. That Conor McGregor's team's reaching out to him, trying to talk to him about this. He would not be doing that if Uncle Dana wasn't on board with this. And that if Conor didn't know that Uncle Dana would be on board with co-promoting something like this. Now, listen, I don't know what the exact numbers are. No one does. And I'm not an attorney, but I believe this with all of my heart. All right. And so that's what I think is going on. So, all right, guys, appreciate you joining me once again. If you would subscribe to the channel, I would definitely appreciate that. Like the video and comment down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Peace.